Hello again. From time to time, I find myself questioning my own recollections of the past. Perhaps it's because everything looks so different today, combined with all those weird television series which show a distorted and unrealistic image of the past. But I honestly begin to wonder if I imagined the society in which I grew up. Fortunately, the old Pathé News Company now has a lot of stuff on YouTube which shows a broad view of England in the 1950s and 1960s. And I'm relieved to note that it shows the world just as I remember it. Older viewers will perhaps remember the days before television was all but universal, when newsreels at the cinema gave you a quick rundown on what was happening in the world. I honestly don't know when that ended. The last one I remember seeing covered the Torrey Canyon shipwreck. That must have been 66 or 67. So I don't think they were making them after the mid 1960s. In the description to this video, I give a link to one video which people might prove interesting to people. It's a colour film covering all sorts of different events in England in the 1960s. It's exactly how I remember it. This is a lost country, a land where almost every family consisted of a mother and father raising their own children, a place where stabbings were all but unheard of, a peaceful and quiet place where you could live your life without worrying about being visited by the police if you should happen to suggest that you thought heterosexual marriage might be a better bet for children than being raised by a same-sex couple. Those were the days when you turned to the police and they would help you if you had any difficulties. The police were our friends at that time. The national anthem was played in cinemas at the end of a film and everybody stood up for it. Patriotism was a virtue. Singing Rule Britannia was an expression of that patriotism, and those living in England knew that they were very fortunate. Everybody had fathers, uncles and cousins who had been soldiers, sailors or airmen during the Second World War, and almost everybody also had grandfathers who had fought in the First World War. Because of this, every family had connections with the military, and the army was revered. I'm a great fan of Rudyard Kipling's poetry, and I can still recite by heart reams of the stuff, which is rather unusual today, and to be honest, a little bit sad, but there we are. I've been reminded recently of one poem in particular called The Return, which is the account of a soldier returning from the Boer War in the early years of the 20th century and his views on England. The chorus of this poem sums up how I myself felt about England when I returned from the Middle East after some years away. If England was what England seems, and not the England of our dreams, but only putty, brass and paint, how quick we'd drop her. But she ain't. England is my country. My parents, grandparents and ancestors, as far back as I can trace, were born here and fought for England. It's part of my DNA, in a way I do not believe it can be for somebody whose family has roots on the other side of the planet. It takes generations to produce an Englishman or Englishwoman, and like maturing fine wine, it's not a process that can be hurried.